Okay, hello everyone. My name's Gervase Poulden and I work at the Department of Energy and Climate Change, and I'm on the European fast stream. And I actually joined a year ago, so slightly incorrect. So just to give a bit of context for how I got to work there, I finished university in 2011 and I didn't study anything to do with European studies or languages or anything. I studied history, very useful. And then I went and lived in Peru for a year, learned a bit of Spanish, which again is kind of useless if you want to work in the European institutions, I later found out. And then I worked in Brussels for 6 months at the United Nations Environment Programme, so I have a bit of experience of what life is like there as well. And then I joined the fast stream last year, and I've been at the at DEC ever since then in the EU team. Now, just to start, before we get going, just like a few, so I kind of know how to structure a bit about what I'm going to say. Can I show of hands if you've heard of the fast stream before? Okay, so that's quite a few, good. And heard of the European fast stream? Yeah, similar kind of amount. And if you've done an A-level or equivalent in a second language? Okay, this is quite a lot, good, right. Okay, so I'm going to try and talk about 3 things in my 10 minutes. I'm just going to cover briefly what is the European fast stream. Secondly, how do you get onto it if you want to? And thirdly, where can it take you? So the European fast stream is basically a subpart of the overall fast stream, which, as most of you know, takes on about 400 graduates every year on basically an accelerated program within the UK civil service. So you do a few postings, and the idea is that you get to promotion a lot quicker than you normally would to get a wide kind of variety of experience. The European fast stream was founded in '91, basically because, as has been alluded to before, we have really poor representation in the UK institutions. So this was founded as part of the way to get more Brits into the Commission, into Parliament, etc. And then it kind of started to die after a few years and got resurrected in 2010 with another boost. But it was more kind of broadening out this time to say, okay, one, we need more people, Brits in the institutions, and second, we just need more EU experience in the UK civil service. So what is the kind of European fast stream deal? What does it actually involve? So unlike the normal fast stream, there's a real focus on EU-facing roles when you're working in the civil service. So for me, for example, I'm working in the Europe team within DEC and working on basically a big European negotiation about setting climate goals for 2030. So that's kind of negotiating with all the other countries, all the other member states in Europe, trying to get to a common position. And then just today, the Prime Minister was discussing this with all other heads of state, so it's kind of a culmination of 8 months' work, and he goes into a closed room and hopefully he makes the right decision and gets the right deal. So that's basically a bit about my position. Now, what else you get along with European fast stream as well? You get all the assistance really that you could want to try and get in to the European institutions. So we talked a bit about the concours already. They are really, really hard. They're very, very difficult to pass, and you need good language skills, and the tests that you do at the beginning are much harder than the ones to get into the UK civil service. So basically what the European fast stream tries to do, as well as giving you that experience in your role, they give you all the training you could want to try and get in that. So you get basically 3 hours of language courses a week in your work time. So you go out of the office and you have your language courses. You have training on passing the European concours, so all those annoying maths and verbal reasoning tests. They give you specific training to pass those, and you have days off where you can train to try and do those. And then also you do a 5-month placement, which again was referred to in the European institutions, so in the Commission or something, as part of your European fast stream program. So to illustrate it a bit better, I've done this timeline here of what it would be like if you joined the European fast stream. So you'd start off in the civil service. You'd have 6 months in an operational role, so that's like delivering a policy or something. So you'd really kind of get an experience, a feel for what is the UK civil service like, what actually are we doing here. And then you have a year in an EU-facing role, so that's what I'm doing now. So working in the Europe team, maybe you'd be doing, a negotiation from the UK perspective. Maybe you'd be delivering like an EU directive at the UK level, something like that. And then you'd have your 5-month time in Brussels. So you then basically at that point you're really deciding: is this really something I want to do? Do I really want to work in the European institutions? And that's the end of your 2 years, and then it's kind of decision time. So you're saying, actually, I love this. I really want to go for the European institutions. I love that time in Brussels. And then you've got that top arrow there. So that's basically fine. I'm going to stay in the UK civil service, and please give me all the help you can so I can try and get in to, to the commission or something. Or you could say, actually, this is crap. I hate the EU. I never want to work with anything to do with it anymore. Get me out of here. I just want to be a normal fast streamer. And you can do that. And you can say, right, okay, and then you just join the normal fast stream, and you could never do anything to do with the EU ever again. Or you could say, well, actually, fine. I don't want to work there, but I quite like all this negotiations from the UK perspective, that kind of stuff. So I'd like to be a EU expert kind of within the UK civil service. So then you continue on those EU-facing roles, etc. From then on. But it's important, I should kind of make that clear, that although a big aim of it is to get in to European institutions, if you don't do it, they don't fire you from the UK civil service. You still remain, a fast streamer no matter what, even if you don't get in. So what do you need to join the European fast stream? And the base requirements are really not that high. You just need a 2-2 degree. Yeah, so some people got the reference there. In any degree. It doesn't have to be languages, nothing like that. And as I said earlier, you need an A-level in French or German. So I think most of you are putting up your hands saying you had a second language A-level. Actually, on that point, I didn't even have an A-level. I had a GCSE, and those 6 months out in Brussels, I really worked on my French. I got it up to the level required, and I did the test, and it was enough. And then once you're into the European fast stream, if you really work on your languages, they give you a lot of training, so you can improve it a lot. I'm going to talk a bit then about the actual selection process for the UK civil service. So the similarities with the European one you just had described. You've got that first round where it's the computer-based tests, so verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, and a personality test. And the big thing there, as has been mentioned with those, just practice them, really practice, do a good few hours, and you'll get the hang of them, and then they're not that hard, should be able to manage them. Then you have what's called an E-tray exercise. It's the second round, where you go into a test center, you have a computer, and these emails come flying in, and you have to make decisions based on the information you have. They'll give you a few options, and it's quite time pressured. And the one thing I'd say there to remember is just be consistent with your decisions throughout. If you make one decision and then later you kind of go back on it in something else you said, then you'll fail. Just be consistent, even if you're not sure that the first decision was exactly correct. And then finally, they have the assessment center, and here you've got a number of different things that they're testing. You'll have an interview, you have a group exercise, you have to do a presentation, and there, I'd say the thing to remember is each time they're testing a different competence, and make sure you know what competence they're testing. So, for example, when you go into the group exercise, remember that they're testing ability to come to decisions. So when you get to the last 5 minutes of the group exercise and everyone's arguing and no one's got any idea about what decisions to make sure you're the one who says, okay, guys, this has been interesting, but time to make a decision. And then, you throw everyone else under the bus and you get full marks. So just make sure what's the competence they're looking for in that particular exercise. And then that make it a lot easier. And again, practice. I did the presentation thing with my mum beforehand. It was so awkward. But if it's difficult, then it's probably good to practice it. And then, one final thing. With the European fast stream, then there is a final selection board once you pass the assessment centre, and that you don't actually have to go in and they say, when was the European Union founded or anything like that. They don't test any EU knowledge, nothing like that. All they look at is how well you did at the assessment centre. So they just look at the people who've done best on it, and do you fulfil the language criteria, which means, do you have an A-level in French? Do you have an A-level in German? Or, as in my case, can you pass our language tests that we set you? So there again, it's just do as well as you can in the assessment centre and you'll get onto European Fast Stream. And again, I'll tell you, it's not really oversubscribed. So, you should be all right if you get a good score. So where can this lead you, being on the European Fast Stream? So I've gone up a few things there. I mean, really it's, I think the way I'd summarize it is the best launch pad possible if you want to go work in the European institutions and you don't get straight in. Because as I said, I can't underline it enough, it's very hard to get straight in through the normal application process. And there's a whole lot of other ways that you can get in if you're a UK civil servant. There's things called, I put SNE there, that means a seconded national expert. So basically you go and work in the European institutions for up to 6 years on, the full gravy train pay and everything, but you're still basically a UK civil servant. So, but you can only do that if you're a UK civil servant, so it's that starting basis to do it. And also, if you've got all this EU expertise, you've been working on EU issues for the UK civil service, you can then go to Brussels, say, working, whatever it is, for a lobbying organisation, anything like that, and you'll always be very well respected because the UK civil service is very, very well respected throughout Europe. It's something you learn very quickly, although, they don't always agree with Cameron's direction for Europe on the whole. They really respect the quality of the UK civil service. So, I mean, you really have a lot of options at your fingertips is what the way I'd summarize it. And then, of course, you can just pursue a career in the UK civil service as well. That's, there's always that option. Or you could get out completely. And the skills that you learn in the UK civil service are really valuable and transferable to other things. You learn to write incredibly well and incredibly succinctly. You learn to deal with incredibly demanding ministers a lot of the time, who you have to explain things to in just a couple of minutes. So the skills are really transferable, it opens up a lot of doors to you. So again, happy to answer any questions about UK civil service, again about the process of going through applications and of working and living in Brussels as someone in their 20s as well. So thank you very much.
I have a question about the fast stream. What about non-UK citizens?
It's a good question because the European fast stream is obviously designed to get more Brits into the EU, but thanks to EU discrimination laws, you can't discriminate on basis of nationality. If you're an EU citizen, you can apply for the European fast stream. So it's totally open. Just as is the broader fast stream as a whole, and within my team, there's a Greek lady within my team of 9, and I'm supposed to use this. I suppose I could summarize. No, it doesn't matter if you're from any other EU country, you can still apply for the fast stream and the European fast stream.
I just wanted to ask you the guys who did internships whether or not your internships were paid. Because at the moment everything seems to be on a voluntary basis, and obviously after uni we're all very poor, and the idea of not getting paid for another 3 to 6 months is quite terrifying, and I don't really know how people cope with that. But the other thing is, if they are paid, and obviously lots of people are kind of going for those, what would you say sets it, or your CV or application apart for those paid internships? And did you think it was worthwhile if your internships weren't paid to actually, sit it out for 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, so I've got a bit of history with this subject actually. So the internship I did at the UN was unpaid. The UN don't pay their interns for some reason. And as I said, so the Commission and the Parliament do, and the 1,000 a month they give you, I think it is at the Commission, is fine. In Brussels, actually, you can get by on that. I mean, I think the thing with the internships is that, I think do one, maybe do 2, but just be careful because there are people who keep doing them, and they're there for 2 years doing these internships over and over again, and it's bullshit because it's not, that's not a real job. And, you're not actually, your CV doesn't really get better with every internship you do. I see it as, it's some good experience, and just use it as more time to find a real job and look frantically during that time. And don't, I mean, work hard, but there's a lot of them that they'll be quite clear this won't lead to a job, and they're not lying a lot of the time. They're being serious. I mean, some will, and then you should really work hard. But if it's not going to lead to a job, take it for what it is and use the time to try and find a real job. But just don't. People in Brussels get stuck on this mill, and they're just doing internship after internship, and I'd just be wary of that. So do 1, do 2, no more than that. You know.
What do you think in your respective fields where you work? How important is having a master's degree?
Crucial. I'm kidding. Who would?
So everybody that I work with in the office has at least a master's or a PhD, and most of the people I know at other think tanks also have a master's, but I think that's more if you're going into any sort of research-related field, you need to have the quantitative or qualitative research skills, which you really gain from a master's. So that's all I want to add.
With regards to be a UK MEP assistant, there's about 78 UK MEPs. Not many of the assistants actually have masters. It's more experience. Experience is more sort of fundamental. But funny enough, other European MEPs, my assistants, they're far more qualified. They're far more have masters, and there's more emphasis on building qualifications. Whereas in the UK, it seems to be more building upon experience. That's just what I found in the European Parliament.
I would say as well, for the competitions for permanent staff, you don't need a master's. Having said that, most of the people probably will have a master's. And I would say maybe not 10, 15 years experience, but a lot of people, I think the average age of people who are successful is more late 20s, 29, 30. So it's people that maybe have a master's and some experience behind them. Although people do pass straight out of university as well. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, again, in the UK civil service, it doesn't matter at all. They never look at it. So it doesn't count for getting in. And again, I'd say within Brussels, you also have that experience of people who are just like building up masters, like that people have 2, 3 masters. And again, it's like a law of diminishing return. So if your masters is directly in a field, this is a field I really want to work in. I know I want to do this, great, do it and take that path. But you do get a sense sometimes that people are just building up an array of masters, like European studies, something else. And it's like, it doesn't help. People don't list the amount of masters you got and say, good, you've got 3, you win over that person who's got 1. They actually are a lot more interested in, if you're directly applying for a job, have you got experience, as said, that's relevant, or have you done something that's interesting? So yeah, a master's if it's relevant to the job, but otherwise,
My question's for the European fast stream. I wanted to ask if you think that if a candidate has spent quite a lot of time studying abroad, whether this is considered an advantage when applying for the fast stream?
If you're applying for the European fast stream.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about the application, as I say, it's really experience blind. So it's purely to do on your competencies. I mean, when you get to the interview in the assessment centre, if you have some good kind of experiences from studying abroad, feasibly that could be helpful. I mean, more broadly, I think considering wider experience, it's when you get into the job, then it can be really valuable and you'll just do better at your job. So if you're just fresh out of university, no other experience, only studied, it'll just take you a long time to get going. So I think that's a broad point that I apply to various things. It'll help you in your job if you have wider experience, if you've worked, with different nationalities. So, I'm often involved with kind of negotiations where you're speaking to people from other countries and everything. If you have a bit of international experience, you're just going to be better at that job. But in terms of the application, no, it's blind. It's all on competencies, etc.
Yes, my question goes back to the nationality question. If you have dual nationality, would that be okay? Say, for example, I'm British and Ecuadorian. So would that be, is that okay to apply, or would I not be able to because of the other nationality?
No.
So that's for the fast stream or for the?
It's for the fast stream.
Well, I mean, for any of the jobs we're talking about, it's fine, dual nationality. It's not. I have dual nationality as well. As long as you've got an EU one.
Basically, my question is for Gervase. So why did you choose to be working for based on the EU institutions, and what made you choose to do that instead of the normal foreign service? Like, what do you think it is more interesting, or what did you get out of it? Which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, rather than say the normal fast stream or the FCO in itself, I think it is really interesting. I love my job at the moment because of working on. Firstly, I'm working on an area I really am passionate about and I'm interested in. If I was working on like some really bland, I don't know, business regulation or something, I for me it just wouldn't do it for me. It would for some other people, but not for me. So I'm really interested in climate change and energy, and so on working in that department on basically on negotiations where you're, you know, every kind of week to week you're trying to align your position with all these other countries and everything, and you're basically involved in negotiations. I think it's really exciting and really interesting, and it's a kind of opportunity you don't get normally in the UK civil service. And I think in comparison to the FCO, so the Foreign Office, I think the Foreign Office has got some good opportunities, but often what you're doing is just kind of reporting back on what's happening a lot of the time from my perspective, and that's just purely personal perspective, and other people have a different one. So I think actually when you're in an EU facing role, you're often at the heart of negotiations, and if you find that interesting, then it's great. And so that's really the reason I did it. And also I spent some time in Brussels, and I loved the atmosphere there. I loved I think Brussels is, I hadn't said this, I think Brussels is an amazing place to work, just to plug it, because sometimes it gets some bad press. It's an incredible international environment with people from all around Europe, all passionate about European projects, and if you are as well, it's a great place to work. But I hope that answers the question.
I was actually also a question about this the fast stream, the European. You mentioned there's also some non-UK nationals, but what's the percentage roundabout, just to kind of get an idea of how likely is it if you're not a UK citizen? Seeing, of course, they're looking at your skills, but still like.
I would discourage from thinking in that way. I mean, in terms of percentage, I don't have the statistics, so it would be pure speculation. And it's going to depend on the department you're in. In some departments, there'll be more. So I can talk about my own department. I mean, yeah, there's a few, maybe, I don't know, 1 in 20, if off the top of my head. But like I say, statistics-wise, I really don't think it's the right way to think about it, because it's not taken into account at all. If you're an EU citizen, you're eligible to apply, and at no stage ever is anyone to say, well, we don't want them, they're not a Brit or something. So yeah, it's not huge proportion, because I think that's largely to do with people wouldn't think of applying. I remember speaking to people about this in Brussels, and they said, well, you can work in the UK civil service if you're not British. And so people just don't know, I think, is a lot of instances. I think it's a very low application rate, but it's not a hindrance at all.